Hello and welcome. It's the 10th of March, 2026, and what I'm about to discuss is something that, after 40 years of theoretical physics, I never imagined I would see within our very own atmosphere. I'm talking about the reports that have been flooding social media from all corners of the world, from London to Tokyo, and now even parts of the Pacific Northwest. People are witnessing rain that does not behave like water, rain with a metallic silver sheen, rain that can reflect radar. Let's take a moment to consider the magnitude of what we're talking about. Earlier today, at 4 UTC, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, issued a quiet advisory to aviation pilots, urging them to avoid cumulus clouds at altitudes above 30,000 feet. Why? Because Doppler radar was detecting something unexpected, not water droplets, but solid particulate matter. I've spent my life modeling cosmic strings in higher dimensions, and the data on my screen right now is more than just intriguing, it's terrifyingly simple. This isn't a weather anomaly. This isn't a case of geoengineering gone wrong. This is something far more complex. This is 3 Atlas. 6 hours ago, NASA's Deep Space Network confirmed an incredible correlation, a 1 in 5 billion chance of coincidence. The exact moment 3 Atlas passed its closest perihelion relative to Earth's magnetic field lines, the object released a dense, high-velocity stream of particles, and we aren't talking about dust or ice. We're talking about an injection of material into our atmosphere. Picture this. You're standing in Central Park, it starts to drizzle, but the droplets don't sink into the ground immediately. They shimmer, hanging in the air like mercury. This is exactly what millions of people are reporting right now. And when you analyze the physics behind what just occurred, the implications are profound. Normally, when a comet releases a tail, it's driven by solar wind, pushing particles away from the sun, but the stream from 3 Atlas didn't follow the solar wind. It curved and accelerated against the solar pressure, directly into Earth's orbital path. This requires intention, a delivery system. Let that sink in. We've detected cosmic dust before. Micrometeoroids fall to Earth daily, but this material is different. The specific gravity of these silver raindrops is 3.4 times heavier than water. This is a material that should not be suspended in clouds by any known laws of atmospheric physics, but it didn't fall immediately. It hovered, and now it's coming down. I want you to look at the data with me. Once you see the timing, the precise synchronization between the Atlas flare and the atmospheric entry, you will understand why the scientific community is in a state of absolute emergency. The question isn't what is happening. The real question is, why now? We need to examine the mechanism itself, because understanding how these particles entered our atmosphere is crucial to understanding why I am speaking to you with such urgency. This wasn't a random shedding event. Comets shed dust all the time, chaotically, messily, spread over millions of kilometers, but what we saw here was surgical. Let me take you back to exactly 48 hours ago, March 8, 2026. At 1422 UTC, NASA's Goldstone Solar System radar in California was tracking 3 Atlas as it moved through the inner solar system. The telemetry was standard, the trajectory was predictable, but then, in a single, discrete window of just 18 seconds, the data spiked off the charts. Goldstone recorded a massive increase in radar cross-section. The object didn't break apart, it didn't fragment. Instead, it pulsed. Imagine that a solid object, supposedly a remnant of the early solar system, expanding its surface area by 400% and then contracting. In that expansion, it ejected a concentrated stream of matter directly towards Earth's orbital intersection. I need to be very clear about something here. The ejection velocity was measured at 3.2 kilometers per second. That's faster than a bullet. The energy required for such an exit velocity suggests a directed impulse, a controlled event. Nature does not typically create directed impulses of this magnitude without a catastrophic collision. And yet, there was no collision. But don't just take NASA's word for it. This is where the story becomes undeniable. At the exact same moment, 1422 UTC, the European Space Agency's Gaia spacecraft, which maps the galaxy with billion-pixel precision, detected a photometric anomaly. It wasn't a thermal flash like an explosion. It was a cold, high-albedo reflection. NASA saw the pulse, ESA saw the flash, and then the Japanese Space Agency, JAXA, confirmed it using the Subaru telescope on Mount Aya. Their infrared sensors picked up the heat signature of the ejected plume. 3 independent agencies, using 3 different tracking methods, radar, photometry, infrared, all pointed to the same impossible conclusion. 3 Atlas fired a payload at Earth. Let that sink in for a moment. If this were a natural comet crumbling under the sun's heat, the debris field would have been scattered and pushed away by the solar wind. But the stream of silver particles we're seeing now defied the solar wind. The calculations from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory show that this stream maintained a coherence tightness that is statistically impossible for natural dust. It traveled 40 million kilometers in a tight beam, striking Earth's upper atmosphere at a precise angle of 12.4 degrees. Why is that angle important? Because 12.4 degrees is the perfect angle for maximum atmospheric skipping. It's the angle that ensures the particles don't burn up upon entry, but instead slow down, cool, and seed the cloud layers. If the angle had been just a little steeper or shallower, 13 degrees or 11 degrees, those particles would either have burned up like meteors or skipped off the atmosphere back into space. But no, this was precision, a level of navigational precision that's almost impossible to comprehend. Imagine throwing a dart from New York and hitting a bullseye in Tokyo while both cities are moving. That's the level of precision we're dealing with here. The payload mass? It's estimated at 44,000 metric tons, about the weight of an aircraft carrier, pulverized into microscopic reflective spheres and inserted into our stratosphere. When I look at the orbital mechanics, I can't help but think about the panspermia hypothesis, the idea that life is seated between stars. But panspermia is supposed to be accidental and slow, taking millions of years. This event, however, took just 48 hours. The silver rain falling on London and New York right now is the direct result of that specific beam hitting the atmosphere. The particles decelerated, mixed with water vapor, and are now precipitating down to Earth. But there's something more. When the Subaru telescope analyzed the spectrum of the plume before it hit Earth, they found something that shouldn't be there. They weren't just looking at silicates or ice. They found a repeating spectral line in the ultraviolet range, a signature that implies an artificial alloy. These are materials that do not naturally form in the cold vacuum of space. We are seeing complex metallurgy. The data doesn't lie. 3 Atlas didn't just pass us by, it interacted with us. Now, we face a question that could change everything we know about the cosmos. What is in that rain? What happens when those silver droplets touch the soil, the oceans, or us? Because the chemical analysis coming in from the ground samples is unlike anything we've ever seen in the periodic table. I want you to think about the rain itself, because the real mystery isn't just how it got here, but what it's made of. The first samples were collected this morning in London's Hyde Park at 5:30 UTC. Citizens were reporting that their umbrellas were turning dull metallic gray, and cars were coated in a fine shimmering film. Researchers at Imperial College London examined the rainwater under an electron microscope and found something extraordinary. They didn't see organic matter, pollen, or standard industrial pollution. What they saw were spheres perfectly uniform, microscopic spheres. Nature, as we know, loves chaos. Raindrops are irregular, dust particles are jagged. But these spheres were identical down to the nanometer. Each one measures exactly 500 nanometers in diameter. That level of uniformity doesn't happen by accident in a chaotic atmosphere. It implies manufacturing, design. This isn't just any ordinary rain. This is what we call smart dust. Let me be clear. I'm not saying these are tiny robots with little antennas. What I'm saying is that the material properties of these spheres are highly anomalous. They are composed of a metallic alloy that includes iridium, osmium, and most disturbingly, an isotope of technetium that does not occur naturally on Earth. Technetium, 99, has a half-life of 200,000 years. It is a byproduct of nuclear fission, not something you find in a pristine comet from the outer solar system. To find it raining down on London in 2026 suggests a process of nuclear synthesis. When I first saw the spectral analysis from the University of Tokyo, I had to double-check the calibration. The ratio of iridium to osmium in these spheres is exactly 1.618. That number 1.618 should ring a bell. It's the golden ratio. In nature, we see the golden ratio in nautilus shells, galaxies, and pine cones, but we do not see it in metallurgy. We do not see alloys spontaneously forming with perfect mathematical ratios of heavy elements. Pause and think about the implications. If you were trying to send a message across the galaxy or seed a planet with specific building blocks, you wouldn't use radio waves that fade. You'd use matter, durable, heavy, mathematically precise matter. This is not just rain. This is a physical transmission. And the behavior of this silver water is even stranger. Reports from the ground indicate that the water doesn't evaporate in the normal way. When the liquid dries, the spheres don't blow away, they bond. In a lab test conducted just hours ago at MIT, researchers placed a drop of this silver rain on a silicon wafer. As the water evaporated, the spheres didn't scatter. They self-assembled. They formed a hexagonal lattice structure on the surface of the chip. This is not chemistry. This is nanotechnology. We're looking at a material that has the ability to organize itself at room temperature. These spheres use the surface tension of the evaporating water to pull themselves together into a conductive grid. Now, imagine zooming out to a planetary scale. Right now, millions of tons of this material are falling into our oceans, our soil, and our water reservoirs. If it self-assembles on a microscopic scale, what happens when it accumulates in the gigatons? Is it building a sensor network? Is it a terraforming agent? Or is it something we haven't even conceived of yet? I want you to look at the footage coming out of New York City. The puddles on the street aren't reflecting the sky like water. They have a high albedo like mirrors. The friction coefficient is near zero. People are slipping on sidewalks that feel like Teflon. This isn't just a curiosity. This is an environmental alteration event. The specific gravity of these spheres means they will sink to the bottom of the oceans, coating the seabed. And because they are made of iridium and osmium, they are chemically inert. They won't rust. They won't degrade. They will stay there, potentially, for millions of years. But there is one final property that has terrified the geophysicists at the USGS. These spheres are magnetic, not just slightly magnetic like iron filings, but super paramagnetic. That means they only become magnetic in the presence of an external field. Earth has a magnetic field, and as these particles fall through the atmosphere, They are aligning themselves with Earth's magnetic north. We are effectively coating the planet in a fine layer of superparamagnetic material. And what does that do to our communications? What does that do to the magnetosphere itself? The data from NOAA satellites is already showing a 0.4% fluctuation in local magnetic field strength over the Atlantic Ocean, exactly where the heaviest silver rain has fallen. We are changing the electromagnetic properties of our planet's surface. And remember, this payload came from 3 Atlas, an object we thought was just a rock. An object that waited until it was close to Earth, aligned its trajectory, and deployed this material with a precision that defies every model we have. It didn't miss, it didn't scatter, it painted us. The question is not if this will change our ecosystem. The question is, what is it building? Because when you see self-assembling lattices forming on a petri dish from rainwater, you have to ask yourself, is the rain the end of the event, or is it just the beginning of the construction phase? Everything I've shown you, the impossible trajectory, the surgical injection, the self-assembling nanospheres, all of that is terrifying enough, but we're not done yet. At 8:15 UTC this morning, something happened that turned this from a scientific curiosity into a global security event. The rain started talking. I know how that sounds, but look at the data from the Arecibo Observatory's successor in Puerto Rico. They weren't pointing their dish at 3 Atlas in space. They were calibrating their sensors on the atmosphere itself, and they picked up a signal not from the sky, but from the ground. The silver rainwater accumulating in reservoirs and on city streets is emitting a coherent, low-frequency hum. It's resonating at exactly 7.83 Hertz. Does that frequency ring a bell? That's the Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of the Earth itself, the natural electromagnetic frequency of our planet's ionosphere. But here's the bombshell. The signal coming from the silver puddles is not just matching the Schumann resonance, it's amplifying it. At 9 UTC, the U.S. Department of Energy issued an immediate classified Level 4 alert to all major power grids on the eastern seaboard. Why? Because the conductivity of the rain is so high and the resonance is so strong that it is creating a feedback loop with our electrical infrastructure. We are seeing voltage spikes in transformers that have no earthly explanation. The rain is effectively turning the surface of the Earth into a giant antenna. And then the unsinkable happened at 10:30 UTC. The internet traffic in London, where the rain was heaviest, slowed down by 40%, not because of a cyber attack, but because the fiber optic cables running under the streets were experiencing interference from the ground itself. The metallic spheres in the soil are interacting with the light pulses in the cables. This is nothing short of astonishing. Think about the precision required here to create a material that tunes itself to the exact resonant frequency of the target planet. That kind of precision suggests prior knowledge, careful study of Earth before even arriving. Cinealis didn't just dump metal on us, it dumped a tuning fork. If this event is natural, then the laws of physics as we know them are broken. If this is artificial, then someone just turned on a microphone. And the scariest part? The signal isn't constant, it's pulsing. Every 14 minutes, the resonance spikes by 300%. It's like a heartbeat, a countdown. When the head of the European Space Agency was asked about this signal an hour ago, he refused to comment. He simply walked out of the briefing room. That silence speaks louder than any data point. We are no longer just observing a comet, we are standing inside the experiment. Let's establish what we know with absolute certainty. We have a confirmed injection of 44,000 metric tons of metallic particulate matter. We have a verified composition of technetium, iridium, and osmium in a perfect mathematical ratio. We have a signal broadcasting from the ground itself at 7.83 Hz. These are not theories, these are documented observations. But one question remains unanswered, a question that the emergency briefing from the World Health Organization carefully avoided. What happens when this enters the biological cycle? Because the rain doesn't just sit on the street, it flows into reservoirs. It seeps into the groundwater. It is absorbed by crops. If this material is self-assembling on a silicon chip, what does it do inside a plant cell? What does it do inside a human body? The physics suggests we are looking at a programmable matter event. The rain is the delivery system, the water is the carrier, and we are the destination. Right now, as you watch this, the storm front is moving across the Atlantic. It is projected to hit the American Midwest in 12 hours. That is the breadbasket of the world. That is where our food grows. If those crops absorb this metallic lattice, if the very structure of our agriculture is altered at a nanoscopic level, then we aren't just looking at a weather event. We are looking at a planetary upgrade or a planetary overwrite. And the clock is running. NASA's deep space sensors just picked up a second pulse from 3 Atlas. It's smaller, faster, and aimed at the southern hemisphere. The first wave was the hardware, the metal spheres. The signal we are hearing now might be the software, the activation code. If 3 Atlas is a probe, it just finished its primary mission. It has successfully seeded the target, and whatever is growing in those silver puddles, whatever is assembling itself in the dark, quiet depths of our oceans, it's waking up. This is no longer a curiosity. It is a global event, an unprecedented moment in history, one that could reshape the world in ways we cannot yet fully comprehend. And we are at the threshold, watching as the future unfolds before us. The real question now is not just what will happen, but how we respond. We stand at the crossroads of discovery of a new chapter in our understanding of the universe. The question is, are we prepared for what comes next? A